Let's go Novocaine. Let's go
Novocaine.
Novocaine,
Yeah.
the big dumb action stupid film that's been released this month, this week rather. And okay, so Novocaine, the basic plot of this film. This is a film that is very similar in sort of like not in execution, but it's almost concept to something like Crank, where the whole idea is that the poster says, meet Nathan Kane, he feels no pain. And the idea is you meet Jack Quaid, who plays a character called Nathan Kane. He is a bank teller. He's quite mild-mannered. He's reserved, doesn't really have any friends, stays at home playing video games. And because he has this condition where he has a congenital inability to feel pain. So because of that, he's worried about things like if he eats solid food, he might bite his tongue and not realize he's bitten his tongue, and therefore he might bleed to death on his own. So he drinks mostly like liquid foods and all that kind of stuff. And he meets a character played by Amber Mid Thunder in who is called what I forgot what her name is, something like Stella or something like that. But anyway, yeah, he meets her and she works in the bank with him. And so there's this whole thing where he's like, oh my God, I might actually have a relationship. I might actually make a human connection, which he's been scared to all these years. They meet, they go off there's a meet cute, there's like a romantic thing. They go out, they end up sleeping together. Then the next day, people raid the next day, people dressed as Santa raid the bank that they work at. They steal a whole bunch of stuff and they take her hostage. And he, because he's like, no, this is the only time I've got any connection in my life, and he runs after them using his ability to not feel pain to essentially become an action hero for a day and track down these people who have kidnapped who is the love of his life. And that is basically the thing. So you have a guy who can't feel pain going through a whole bunch of things that you would find in a usual action movie, and it that's the basic premise. That's all you need to know. And if that's enough for you, I think that hearing that is enough for you to say, I'm watching this, or it's enough for you to say, I'm staying well away. So, Sean, which one was it for you? Did you hear the premise and go, I'm watching this, or I'm staying away?
Okay, well, when I saw that, I watched the trailer for this, and I sort of was thinking we've probably seen everything in the trailer, so it's probably not going to
Yeah, yeah,
be,
true.
be particularly good. But I did sort of quite look. Well, I was interested in it, so I went to see it, and I would say I was sort of just like not one way or the other until I'd
Yeah,
actually seen it. But I was quite surprised by this actually.
yeah.
There was a few extra bits in it. I mean, really, really like. I mean, again, with me, it should have all the things that I hate. You know what I mean? Stupid car chases. It's that they didn't have the drone shot. They didn't have the drone shot, so that's
A
what.
drone
So
shot of a car chase.
we can.
Yeah, I think that this is sort of like quite a mid-budget movie. I mean, they made it for 18 million, which is in film terms is nothing. So I feel like they focused on the things that they knew they could do well, and they didn't focus on any extraneous thing like drone shots.
That's it. That's it. But who was the lead? Who was Novocaine? Because he was
Is
the guy
Jack
in the
Quaid?
boys, wasn't he? Yeah, the guy in the boys, and he just basically played the same
He's
wimpy,
basically playing
weepy.
he's playing Huey. He's playing Huey from the
Playing Huey.
boys.
He's basically
Yeah,
playing Huey. So he's going to
yeah.
end up being typecast, I think. But
Well,
I
he was
thought,
different in Companion.
oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I think he went around it a bit of a long way, really. So, but whereas he could have just sort of found out with the because So anyway, but
Yeah,
yeah,
because
so
there is a surprising amount of I think quite solid detective work that he
yeah, there
does.
is,
Yeah,
there is, there
yeah.
is.
It's
It's
not
quite
it's not
solid
just punch
detective
kick.
work.
There's actually some sort of detective work of hang on, if I go there and I can find that out, then I can find that out, then I can find that out, and therefore I can get there. I can find out where they. And I think the detective work in the film is actually quite solid.
Yeah, I do think it's quite solid, but I think he could have got to the, shall
He
we
could have
say,
got to the end quicker.
the chap in the bar could have got. He probably could have got, a little bit easier. But anyway, well, I could be getting confused. But yeah, I mean, the blood. There's no way that he would have. I think. I mean, I'm surprised he would have had any.
Well, I
Especially
think
especially in the house with the traps, and that did make me laugh with
well,
the traps.
in the
But,
middle of this big action movie, there's pretty much a homage to Home Alone.
yeah,
That's pretty
that's
much-
it.
and the film acknowledges that it's homaging Home Alone in the middle of this whole thing. When he goes into a house that's booby trapped, but obviously the problem is that whenever he gets hit by a booby trap, he can't feel it. He doesn't realize that he's been hit. There's a funny scene where he's getting tortured and he has to pretend like he's in
Yeah.
massive pain because all
That,
these
that's
horrific
that's in the trailer. That one.
yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's all these horrific things that are being done to him, and he can't feel any of it. And so he's like, oh, that is so much pain. Oh, and,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
yeah, and I think that because the film has a dedication to some almost realism, where it's trying to go like, okay, cool, what would realistically happen and everything like that. And I feel like they go a little bit too far in the dedication to realism, because they try and go into this whole thing about his condition, and they talk about like, for instance, they go to the point of him having he has an alarm on his watch for every 3 hours, because if he doesn't have the alarm every 3 hours, he might end up like wetting himself. Because and I'm like, okay, so are you saying he can't feel pain? Or are you saying he can't feel anything?
Anything. Yeah.
And that is something that is not that well. It's not that well defined in the film.
Defined, yeah.
Because there's things I'm like, but hang on. In the case, if you actually can't feel anything, then how do you walk? How do you pick something up? How do you know that? How do you know that I've? And it's so. And I think because in the film, like they try and have the cake and eat it. So sometimes it's like he can't feel pain, but sometimes it's like, oh, he can't feel anything. And I'm like, nah, that kind of took me out of it a bit, because there were bits where I'm like, okay, now you're saying he can't feel pain. Okay, I can understand that as a stupid concept and everything like that. Let's go for the film. Let's do a Hollywood version of that condition. And then if you say he can't feel anything, because it took me out of it sometimes, because I thought that they were not being that clear with it, and it was making the film less good, because they were not being clear about that.
I didn't really clear that up, but it was. I mean, it was daft, really, because there's no way
daft, yeah.
Any of them, like him or even some of the should we say the action sequences where their heads were getting bashed and all sorts of things going on, and you're like, what? From that, and broken limbs and stuff. But it was pretty bloody, wasn't it? Really,
it was pretty bloody, and they do have a way around it. But they because I mean, because they point out the fact that he can't feel pain. That doesn't mean he can't die. Because he can die, he just can't feel pain. He can die from blood loss. And they have this regular thing, which is where it becomes very, very crank, where he knows that he's about to pass out, and so he gives himself a shot of epinephrine, because it's essentially, and it's very much like crank, where he has to have the adrenaline.
Would it do that, Toes? Would adrenaline do that? I don't know if it. I mean, I could understand it doing a bit, but I don't know if it would give you like a super boost, unless it was. I mean, because I've had a EpiPen before, and it does give you a shot, but I don't know if it'd be like, ooh.
I don't know. I've never had a shot of adrenaline. I've never had a shot of epinephrine, so I really do not know what would go with that. I'm stuck in the dubious thing of having to trust filmmakers to tell me how something works. But the thing is, I was happy to let that go, because in the realms of like a stupid action film, I was happy to let that go. The bit that I couldn't let go was where they weren't being clear about whether he doesn't feel pain or whether he doesn't feel anything.
Because he wouldn't be able to walk, would he? He wouldn't be able to walk or anything.
You better pick anything up.
No, that's the bit that I'm like, it would be very difficult. I mean, there might be people who have this condition, and it will be very difficult, and that just made me go, hang on a second, no, make it clear, make it clear.
Make it clear, because if you can't
involved in this woman, then how would that work then if you can't feel anything?
They have a scene. There's a scene about that, and they're very unclear about it.
They are. And it's the scene that's in the trailer where he goes, I'm definitely feeling something.
Yeah, I know, but it's like and it's like a joke. It's like done as a throwaway joke, but I'm like, it needs to be clearer. It needs to be clear for this to be the absolute fun that I hoped this film would be. Yeah. So for me, I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. As I say, it was. I mean, because of the type of film it was, I wasn't like critical. It reminded me a bit like the Bad Boys. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't take itself too serious. When films take themselves seriously, that I get a bit cheesy. So it's a 3 for me as well.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So